Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Briarcrest Christian School Student Ministries podcast. My name is Jason Ellis, and I am the Director of Student Ministries here at Briarcrest. And we are, as always, excited that you have joined us. And as I was promising you guys, I know y'all got to listen to a couple weeks
Hayes
of me monologuing,
Hasseltine,
but this week
going to be
we have 2020, 2021 Briarcrest Secretary on Student Government. So we are excited to have her, and Hayes, super excited to have you. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Want to start out by asking, you will be on student government as the secretary. What does that mean?
I have always kind of wanted to lead, but I didn't really know how because I'm not super outgoing and put myself out there a ton. So this was kind of like a leadership position where I wasn't in front of everybody all the time. So I kind of liked that aspect of the position.
Gravitated towards it.
Yes.
So with that, organization is key.
Yes.
You were telling me before we started recording you like organizing.
I do.
Explain to all of us who are not type A what that looks like. Why is organization something that you're excited about?
Well, especially with school stuff, I have all these classes that have a lot of homework each night, and so I have my planner where I can write down all my homework just to stay organized and on top of things so that you're not procrastinating when you get home. So just trying to stay on top of things.
So not only are you super organized, but you're not a procrastinator either.
I feel like it kind of depends.
Okay.
I'm not, but then sometimes I get so tired that I'm just sit there and I'm hang on, let's.
Well, and that just happens with the normal sleep deprivation that comes with the school year, right?
Yes.
No, I get that completely. So, excited about keeping the rest of the student government organized.
I am.
So, just as far as the 2020-2021 school year, we know it'll look different. We're wearing masks around this building right now. That's one thing. So, just kind of, what are your hopes for this school year, especially in the midst of still dealing with the COVID-19 craziness?
Yeah, I'm just hoping that some things can be the same, and even if it's not quite the same, that it'll still be good, and we're still gonna have a good school year, and there's still gonna be positive things that will happen, and not everything's gonna be as it was, but that doesn't mean it's not gonna be good.
Yeah, and I like that too, because what you're talking about is there's still kind of the hopefulness that something good will come out of, even though things won't be the way that they have normally been. Now, speaking of things not being the way they normally are, the end of your junior year was not normal.
Yeah, not at all.
And we were talking beforehand about you were in Julia Abel's D group. So what did that mean to you personally, just in your walk with Christ, as you were trying to navigate the pandemic and you had Julia constantly reaching out to you and people in the D group reaching out to you? What did that mean to you?
Yeah, it was really helpful and encouraging that there was other people who were dealing with the same things and you weren't alone in that. And I think Julia did a really good job of being consistent and constantly saying what can I pray for you about, and that kind of stuff. It was just nice to know that you're not alone and someone's there and thinking about you.
Is there anything in particular that comes to mind that there was kind of this relief, you heard, maybe you're sitting around D group on Zoom, by sitting around, I mean you were Zooming, but you're sitting there digitally doing D group and you hear somebody say, I'm struggling with X, Y, or Z, and you're like, oh my gosh, me too. Was there any of that where you just could kind of relate specifically to somebody just going through something?
Yeah, I think during that time we were all just kind of by ourselves, so definitely the loneliness aspect of that, and even from the podcast that y'all did, just knowing there's other people who are dealing with this, and I'm not completely alone in that.
Well, I was even talking to somebody that I know, and he's thinking about things of faith and thinking about Christ and trying to figure out what that means, and he mentioned to me almost the same thing. It's kind of when you start going down that road of following Jesus, there's that surprise, and I guess it shouldn't surprise us, but it does, that other people are struggling with the same thing.
Yeah.
So just with that, is there an encouragement that maybe you have to somebody who's just struggling, hey, this is something that's helped me during this time, just to maybe find somebody to talk to? Is there any encouragement you might give to somebody who is kind of just in that season where they feel isolated or siloed off, where they're not having those conversations like you got to have with your D group?
Yeah, I would definitely put yourself out there and try to find someone to talk to, because like at some points you just kind of like are like feeling that loneliness and you just don't talk to anybody, so then you keep feeling that and it just keeps getting like deeper and deeper, and so you're just kind of like by yourself. So trying not to get to that point, so find somebody to talk to that you can, they'll pray for you and just be there for you.
Yeah, and it's almost like we're afraid to open up, so we feel lonely. So then because we don't open up and we feel lonely, we keep not opening up. So then we keep feeling more lonely, and it just builds on itself. So I appreciate people like you saying that and bringing that to attention, and people who are going to be leading D groups this year, like being willing to do that. So are you leading a D group this year?
I am.
Okay.
I am, yes.
Awesome. Do you have a prep, like a grade that you're just like, man, I want to pour into that? Or are you just pretty much wide open?
I'm wide open. I'm doing it with Sarah Granger, so whatever is here for us, we're ready.
Now, one of the other things you mentioned that you did was Student Leadership University, and I feel like most of our student government has done Student Leadership University, which is fitting because you're now leaders. What comes to mind, just because you've been to Orlando, you've been to DC, you've been to Europe. Just one maybe big takeaway, Student Leadership University, that you're going to be applying this year, because you were talking about how you want to lead, and you want to find a role that fits your personality. So you're like, I'm not necessarily the upfront person, but I am, happy to, help lead in any way I can. So what's one thing that you picked up from SLU that you see yourself already implementing, or you're looking forward to implementing?
Yeah, I think one thing that they really harped on was that, like, to be a leader, you don't have to be like the loudest person in the room. Like, to lead, you can be a listener and like hear what everybody else has to say. And I think that's kind of like more of how I work, just because I would rather listen and not kind of like hear everybody else discuss. So I think that will be helpful, knowing that, like, even though I'm not like the person talking all the time, that like you can still lead well.
Yeah. Well, and that's probably something I need to hear, that I don't have to be the loudest person in the room in order to lead. Luke Hall behind the camera is laughing right now. But anyway, so I appreciate that. I might have needed to learn that from SLU. I'm looking forward to doing 201 next summer. But so with that, how long have you been at Briarcrest?
I've been here since preschool.
Okay, so like, does preschool mean Little Saints? Like, were you 2 when you walked in this building for the first time as a student?
I think so, 2 or 3.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
so you've been here a while. And you got the opportunity to lead senior year, so like I was saying earlier, you'll have a lot of ownership. You've been an ambassador, right? So you get to walk people around the building that are thinking about coming here. So, I mean, I feel like for somebody like you, both your parents work here, like, you got some investment at Briarcrest. What is something that stands out to you that has just meant a lot to you during your time here?
Yeah, definitely just the teachers and how like intentional they are, just like with like teaching you, and then also with just being there for you no matter what. Like, you can go talk to them about anything, and it doesn't have to be about school. It doesn't have to be during school hours. It can be at a random time during the night, and they'll just, be there for you. And yeah, I really liked that.
Well, and that's something too that I hear a lot of from our recent grads, who would say, like, hey, what do you miss about Briarcrest? No one really ever talks about the dress code. They don't talk about the uniforms. They don't talk about all the stuff we normally gripe about when we're here. It's kind of like that all fades in the background as soon as they get out of this place. But they miss the relationships. They miss the people. So just for anyone who's listening, I would really encourage them to kind of pour into those relationships, especially your class, senior year. So with that, what's one thing, like, you're walking around the school, you're giving a family a tour, and you're just like, this is the thing I want to make sure I point out to you about this school?
Yeah, I think just how, like, the teachers, I don't know, I just love the teachers here, and just how, like, they are there for you no matter what. So I think part of that, or I would point that out a lot. Just
make sure to emphasize that.
Yeah, that, like, because I feel like most people, like, if they're touring, they may have come from like public schools or that kind of thing, where like the teachers may not be, like, they're there to teach you and that's about it. And so it's just like a different change of like mind, just knowing that like they're actually here for you and not just to teach you. Like, they're here for a bigger reason.
Yeah. What is, favorite class so far in high school? What comes to mind?
I mean, math is like my favorite subject.
Okay.
But I really enjoyed English last year.
Okay.
With Coach Neighbors.
Yeah. Who doesn't love them? Some Coach Neighbors.
Yes.
Oh, that's and so I mean, you get to take them again this year.
I do.
There you go.
Yes.
So that'll be a fun senior year experience for your English class. Now, just thinking back to those last 9 weeks where we were stuck at home. This school year promises to be different, as we've kind of already established. But let's just say things don't go the way that we want them to go. What's maybe one thing that you as a leader now, like people are going to look to student government and be like, hey, help set the tone here. Maybe what's one word of encouragement you could give to a student that, let's say, stumbles across this video in October and is really struggling with stuff because maybe they're being quarantined. Just a word of encouragement, something that's meant a lot to you that you could offer to them just kind of as they're walking through that.
Yeah, I think definitely, like, I think I said this earlier, how, like, even though it's not the same as it was, like, there's still hope for the future, and, like, this will eventually go away, so it's not going to last forever. So just knowing that, like, this isn't how it's going to be all the time. So, like, just looking forward to, like, what's to come. Yeah. And not, like, dwelling on what is happening in the present.
I like that you said that, too, because one of the phrases that I used to hear all the time, I still hear it, but I view it differently. Somebody, the church I went to, and the pastor would say, the best is yet to come. And I always envisioned that meant, like, there will be more prosperity around the corner, right? But ultimately, I mean, I guess there will be in the sense of, like, one day we get to see Jesus and we get to live with him. So there's always that hope that we can continue to look towards, even if the circumstances seem good or bad. So I think that's a really good point. Okay, so last question. What has been your favorite thing you've seen student governments do in the past, and how would you want to build on that? So like maybe freshman, sophomore, junior year, thinking back to student governments, like you probably always, especially like going through student leadership, you've thought, hey, I'd like to lead. So what's something that you've seen the student governments do in the past that you're like, man, I want to build on that. I think that's maybe it's a dress-up day. Maybe it's just a way they interacted. Maybe it's a thing that they created. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I have like a few. I think D groups definitely, which isn't like my area that I'm like working with specifically. But I think that just like it's like such a community that you've built, and I admire that a lot. But I also think like dress-up days and stuff like that, just like that's where everybody's just kind of like together. Like everyone's dressing up, everyone has like school spirit, and everyone's excited. So I really like that, and just like the togetherness.
Okay, so I lied. This is actually the last question. Favorite dress-up day?
Oh man.
Like think about. I mean, I'm thinking of like
there
was like famous person day. Wasn't there? There's days where we like divide up into the grades.
Oh,
There's your classic green and gold.
I like the days where you divide up into the grades.
Okay.
Yes. I really liked the one they did last year with like the different, like what's it called? Like the years, the ages.
Yeah. That was funny.
That was funny, but like when I was a freshman, we had like the Great Depression, so that was kind of sad. But
so it was kind of depressing.
Yeah.
But
I kind of like those, just like seeing how everybody, because I feel like you can be really creative with those ones.
For sure, and then you can try to see which ones work and which ones stick, because you're basically getting 4 dress-up days out of one day. Yeah. So very, very efficient in that way. But anyway, Hayes, well, thank you so much for being with us. I look forward to seeing what the Lord does through your leadership, through your D group, and just seeing what God has in store for this school year. And I want to encourage all of our viewers to subscribe. Hayes is not only subscribed across all of our platforms, but she's actually gone in and commented on all of them and said how wonderful this podcast is. So we want to make sure that you subscribe, because we still have one more student government leader to interview, and so we will be bringing that to you, and we don't want you to miss it when it drops. So we hope you have a great rest of your day, and we will see you again soon here on the Briarcrest Christian School Student Ministries Podcast.